thing. So welcome everybody to today's episode of Astrology with Yasmin. And today I have a really amazing treat for you that we've organized at the last minute. Yesterday, I did a workshop with the amazing astrologer Lynn Bell, who I've known for many, many years now. She is exceptional. I would say she's world renowned, and she's also a beautiful friend of mine. And it's been too long since we've gone out for a café gourmand in Paris. But once this whole pandemic thing's finished, I'll be back, Lynn.
Yes.
So welcome, Lynn. We're going to talk today about the nodes, which is what Lynn was talking about at the workshop yesterday. Although I will say, and I'll give more information, Lynn is actually going to be doing a workshop about the astrology of 2022. I'll put a link above, but basically if you go to ubiquityuniversity.org and look for Lynn Bell's name, Lynnbell, you'll find her workshop there, but I'll put a link as well. But Lynn, tell us, for those of us, for people who are listening who are going, I keep hearing about the nodes. What are these nodes? Because let's hear it from you, what the nodes are, and then we're going to talk about where they are for everyone, and we'll see how much time we've got.
Well, the nodes are this mysterious part of the moon's orbit that moves backwards through the zodiac. But it doesn't mean they're retrograde in the way Mercury or Venus goes retrograde. It means they permanently are going backwards. So it's something in our lives that's revealing what needs to be let go of and a new area that needs to be brought into our lives. There's a lot of mythology that's risen about the nodes. We call them, the North Node is called the head of the dragon, and the South Node, the tail of the dragon. And all you need to know is that the tail of the dragon, the South Node, is actually what is asking you to let go. So when the nodes change signs, they're suddenly acting in a whole new area in your life, and sometimes in a whole new house in your life. And this becomes really important. Now, letting go sounds great, but it can be a little bit more complicated. Sometimes you let go by going into a difficult place first, or repeating a pattern that maybe you've been running for a while and you need to let go of it. You only later, after repeating it or reactivating something and saying, what is this and how did I get here, that you know you need to let go of it.
And one thing I loved about your workshop yesterday was your definition of, you know, the split between the head and the body of the dragon, basically. And the idea that the North Node is insatiable because, you know, whatever it takes into its mouth doesn't nourish it, doesn't do anything, goes out the bottom of its neck, I suppose.
And it's true because, well, and that comes from Hindu mythology, and that where the North Node is called Rahu. And this demon, you know, just managed to lick up a few drops of immortality, and then his head got chopped off. So he's permanently split. So the nodes have to do with these places we tend to get split from ourselves. And we repair in different ways. Sometimes we move with the North Node, but of course the North Node is an extremist, as is the South Node.
So if you had to sum up the North Node, the meaning, and let's talk about by transit, as in what's happening now, because that's what everyone's going to be very interested in, I think. But if you had to sum up the North Node and the South Node, how would you sum them up? Because one thing I loved about your interpretation yesterday as well was you were very much, you know, let's not all hate on the South Node.
Yeah, well, because the South Node has, you know, if you think of it as somebody who's eaten lunch and gets their head chopped off, they're full. You know, like there's a lot in there, but it's almost like not gaining new ground, but there's huge treasures in the South Node. And very often where the South Node is in your birth chart, which depends on your year of birth, the South Node spends the nodes spend 18 months in each sign axis. So there's a small generational group with the nodes in the same sign, and then 9 years later in the opposite sign. However, there are also gifts associated with the South Node. And I wanted to talk about that yesterday because I've seen it so clearly over the years in people's charts.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I always think of the North Node as where you need to go for happiness and fulfillment in this lifetime. And the South Node is where you might fancy staying because it's comfy and you kind of already know it, and it's like the old slippers that are comfortable. But the North Node pushes you out of your comfort zone and actually is probably where you need to go. Does that fit with your interpretation of it?
I know this interpretation of the nodes, and for years that's how I saw it.
I got it from Michael Luton.
Yeah, and this is an interpretation that came in, and the nodes haven't always been seen this way, right? So right now, the idea is that the South Node is both a place. I always think that the South Node you need to go to when you need to be resourced, but if you stay there too long, it's like drinking flat champagne.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't do it for you anymore. So you have to go out into that new territory, that unknown territory of the North Node, where you're reaching out there to gather more towards you. And it's true, it's not your comfort zone necessarily.
So you're saying kind of go backwards and forwards.
Yeah, depending on what's going on in your life. And I find that very, very often when people when your South Node is activated, it can often mean that people come into your life who feel very connected to you. You don't have to make any effort to get to know them.
And very familiar, yeah.
Yeah, and then with the North Node, you meet people who are part of your destiny. They'll take you to a place you wouldn't know how to get to otherwise.
Okay, so we will get to through the houses in a minute, but I just want to ask you something else, Lynn, because what some people won't know is that in fact wherever the nodes go, is the eclipses follow. So a North Node eclipse versus a South Node eclipse, what would you say to that? Or is it going to depend on if it's a new or a full or?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on whether it's a lunar or a solar eclipse, right? I'm not going to generalize about that, but basically when you have a full moon eclipse, your eclipses always give you an opportunity to clear something out, and sometimes they give you a huge boost. And they can be, they can also, make you really revved up and almost inhuman in your desires, like they're not neutral. The nodes are not neutral places. So they're very hard to keep balanced.
Because the thing is, when I see an eclipse on the North Node, especially a new moon eclipse, a solar eclipse on the North Node, I'm always like, yeah. But then when I see one on the South, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But you're saying, no, you don't have to be like that.
No, I don't think so. And in fact, in Hindu astrology, a South Node eclipse is like a real opportunity for spiritual growth, because you recognize you don't need something anymore. You don't have to hang on to that thing. And the South Node really helps in the spiritual process, in that process of stripping down, right? Whereas the North Node, when you're cleaning your closet, you could say that's pretty much South Node. You're dealing with the past. You're going out. But when you become obsessed with it and you can't have one single extra thing in your apartment and everything has to look perfect, then that's probably the North Node overdoing.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to talk. We're going to talk through the new configuration that we've got to play with now, which about a week or so ago, the nodes changed signs, for those of you who don't know, and they moved from Gemini Sag axis to Taurus Scorpio axis. And I'm going to share my screen with a bit of luck. So here we go. Can you see that, Lynn?
I can.
This is, for those of you who don't know, this is Solar Fire. Okay, so let's start with Aries. Now, for anyone, listen to your rising sign. If you're listening on the radio and you can't see it, don't worry. But if you're watching this on Facebook, have a look. If you can't see it, don't worry. We'll explain. But listen to your rising sign for reasons we won't bother explaining here. So, yes. So, Lynn, let's talk through the 12 signs just briefly, just in a nutshell. Top of the mind. If they're Aries or Aries rising, they've got the North Node in the 2nd house and the South Node in the 8th house.
Well, here, Aries loves to rush forward into life and is more than happy to get rid of anything that's in its way, right? And that getting rid of process is the South Node in the 8th house. But with the North Node in the 2nd, Aries are asked to say, if I do this, am I going to want to keep it? If I go towards this person, this job, is this going to be something that's going to stay with me for a while? And this is the key question the North Node is asking.
Okay. All right. I mean, one thing I would also say about that is just because the 2nd house is, cash problem possessions, and the 8th house is more joint finances, maybe, in my way that I've always looked at it, I would say now's the time to move towards standing on your own 2 feet financially. But you might say, find a balance between standing on your own 2 feet, but also not being afraid of being collaborative.
Well, one of the things that could happen is if you are impulsive and find yourself in trouble and have to go to someone else to bail you out, that could come with huge conditions right now, because the South Node will reveal that pattern of being dependent on other people.
Because Lynn's a psychological astrologer.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Beautiful. Let's go to Taurus or Taurus rising people. So they've got the North Node in the 1st house and the South Node in the 7th house, which, by the way, is your love zone.
Yeah. This is a kind of a great place. It's almost like starting to feel good about who you really are and not allowing yourself to get bent out of shape about what the beloved thinks of you or doesn't think of you. And one of the things to watch out for are obsessive love relationships that pull you off center. But with this nodal axis, that's really unlikely, okay? Because not only is the North Node in the 1st, but it's going to conjunct Uranus, the freedom planet in the sky.
Yes, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have a Gemini rising.
Yeah, well, the Gemini risings, they're overworking a little bit. And they've been trying to keep it going. Extroverted signs have had a really hard time during lockdown because they need people and they need conversation. So they're just probably on the point of exhaustion and need to go spend some time with their body, chilling out.
A bit of zen.
Nature, be zen.
Yeah. Ditch the workaholism.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. This is great. So the Cancerian rising people, they've got the North Node in the 11th house and the South Node in the 5th house.
Yeah, well, this again is wherever, how sometimes we love something and then we love it so much it becomes an addiction. So this is really to cool it, to be larger, to step back and think of the other person as another human and not just as your love object or your satisfactory object, whether it's a lover, a child, a pet, whatever it happens to be, just step back.
Yeah.
That's what I would say with these nodes.
Okay. Yes. And try and think of humanity as well, more than just being obsessed with that person. Yeah, very good. Cool. Okay, so now we're looking at Leo rising, who they've got North Node in the 10th and South Node in the 4th, not to mention
this is
their
one of
opposite sign.
Yeah. This is a nodal position that actually wakes up a lot of issues with family of origin or current family. And it tends to, you can find that your emotional interactions with other people try to pull you into places you don't want to go. And this is true with the node in Scorpio generally. As Stephen Forrest says, Scorpio is about all the things nobody wants to talk about or deal with. And with the South Node going through there, it's certainly waking these up. And it can bring up things from your past. It can bring up anxiety about security and where you live. And so it's up to making a project to make yourself as stable and as solid as possible.
Okay. And, you know, it may be a good time to do a bit of career stuff rather than obsessing about domestics.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. So now Virgo Rising, which is North Node in the 9th and South Node in the 3rd.
Well, so this again it's, you know, Taurus Scorpio is one of those oppositions where, you know, Taurus is chill and can just spend a moment being natural, appreciating the simple things. And this nodal axis is in the houses of the mind. So on the other hand, the South Node in Scorpio can be like major anxiety and all these questions and doubt and wondering. And it's kind of, the advice is be chill.
Be chill. That's it. I like it. And especially if you're Virgo Rising, because you guys do need to chill because you're just too conscientious sometimes.
Yeah. And just realize that it is going to work out. It doesn't matter how much you fret. You are going to get there.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. So now we get to Libra Rising. So they've got North Node in the 8th and South Node in the 2nd.
Well, this is, you know, Libra Rising loves, you know, can have a little bit of a princess complex or a prince complex, you know, only the beautiful things for me. And here you're really asked to share what you have with other people.
Yeah.
And you know, that can be stressful. But you can't keep everything for yourself with this particular nodal axis.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because there's always a cycle in which we give more and sometimes we get less. And don't stress about that. If it's temporarily imbalanced in your life, it will balance at a future time.
Yes, share your toys. All right, Scorpio Rising. So they've got the South Node in their sign and they have the North Node in their love zone.
Right. Well, yeah, this is get over yourself. Get over yourself and really bring what you can to relationship to make the other people feel good about being with you. You know, because Scorpio Rising can be a little bit tricky. They adore you, but then they test you by doing something a little bit destabilizing. And they only do this because they themselves have experienced such powerful emotions that they need to know whether they can trust the other person. But this is a year where you can really move into trust in relationship, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, good. All right. And also, I would say, looking at that, you know, like even if your love life is a bit unstable at the moment because of Uranus being in there, don't shy away from it. Don't just say, right, that's it, I'm going to be a monk, because there is stuff to be gained by pushing out of your comfort zone in relationships.
Yeah, in the end, it will, you know, it may not work at the first try.
Yeah.
But yes.
Don't just give up and go and live, you know, in a cave.
Yeah.
All right, Sag Rising. So they've got North Node in the 6th house and South Node in the 12th house.
Yeah, well, the Sag Risings, you know, they love to run around the world. They love to adventure. But this time it's like getting really serious about something, you know, doing something that gives them real self-knowledge, that helps other people, and actually enjoying it. One of
Alexa, stop. Sorry, Alexa's interrupting. Keep going, Lynn, sorry.
Yeah, one of the wonderful things is that the North Node in Taurus invites us to enjoy what we're doing this year, wherever it falls. So this means you could really like the work you're doing. And if you don't, find some work you do like.
Yeah. And also, don't just go so far up your spiritual path that you kind of lose touch with all the stuff you've got to do.
Yeah, it's not the year to go out to the ashram.
Exactly.
Or if you do that, you need to be involved in building housing for the people who live around the ashram.
Yes, and do your duty.
Yeah.
Okay, Capricorn Rising. So they've got the North Node in the 5th house and the South Node in the 11th house.
Oh, the Capricorn Rising people are, they're actually called to have more fun than usual.
Good, because haven't they they need to have some fun. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Like there is that, Capricorns are always pushing forward. And basically, you may try to get other people together to do what you want to do and accomplish something. And it's not going to end up being where the most satisfaction comes in. It's going to come much more from actually just allowing yourself to really enjoy life.
And be creative and just do your own thing a bit. Don't get lost in the crowd. Yeah. All righty. So Aquarius Rising. So Aquarius Rising people have got Saturn in their 1st house right now. So that's an interesting time for them anyway.
Yeah.
But they've got North Node in the 4th house and South Node in the 10th house.
Yeah, they're trying to find this whole idea of stability, like how much is too much, because Aquarians love to be free, but that right now they need to kind of find out how to define freedom with security. And it may be a time there will be crises in work. And so there may be a need to spend more time on an inner level, be more private, be intimate with yourself and with the people close to you.
Yeah, beautiful. And finally, Pisces Rising. So they've got the North Node in their 3rd house and the South Node in their 9th house.
Well, Pisces Rising are just like suddenly discovering that one of the many things they thought possible is really possible. And they are so excited to be learning about it that they want to tell a lot of people about it. But Pisces, you have the key. You understand a lot of what's going on this year. It's you have your finger on the cosmic pulse. I mean, you always do, but sometimes you're like spinning around and can't really communicate it. But this year is your year to be able to tell other people, to explain to other people what's going on.
Beautiful, Lynn. Thank you. All right. So I want to conclude now because it's really the time we've got. But just to go back to something you said, and then I want to talk to you just a little bit more about your workshop. So you were saying, I love that. You were saying about with the North Node in Taurus, one of the things is to get enjoyment, to look at where the enjoyment lies and what you can get enjoyment from. What about, that's a lovely little summing up. What about Scorpio? What would be the South Node? What's this little summing up of that?
Well, Scorpio means on one level or another, I was talking about how Scorpio has to do with the different toxins we accumulate, whether those are psychological or emotional, or
especially in the last few years.
Yeah, we're all like holding a lot of stuff, and we're angry at people we don't even know. We're outraged at people we don't even know. And it's really time to let go of all that. And if you can't let go of it, the area where the South Node is going to create trouble for you.
Yeah.
Basically, let's put it that way.
I think that's perfect. I totally agree with you. So Lynn, just tell us a little bit about your workshop coming up. Lynn really is one of the best astrologers and one of the most widely recognized astrologers in the whole wide world. Okay, so you've got a chance to go and listen to Lynn talking at this Astrology of 2022 workshop she's doing, which, as I said, is if you go to the ubiquityuniversity.org and then just type in Lynn Bell, L-Y-N-N Bell,
and I'll also
put a link.
I think there's an URL. If we put it on the Facebook site, it'll be easy.
Oh yeah, no, I'll definitely put a link, but just for people who are listening to it on the radio. So what can they expect at the workshop? I mean, obviously you're going to talk about it, but give us a broad brushstroke.
Well, I'm going to talk about all the general planetary movements of the year. And, you know, we've just ended Venus retrograde, right? And we've had this major contraction at the beginning of the year. And what's coming is a huge release. And then a new energetic, just barreling forward in the middle of the year. And then again, as we get later in the year, a little bit of that squeeze or that contraction, it's a little less propitious, let's say, for being out there dancing every night. But I'm going to talk about these in astrological terms. There's an archetypal language with the planets that explains this, and do some visualizations and help people get into contact with this. Now, the workshop's on February 7th in the if you're in Australia, it might end up being in the middle of the night for you, but you can always listen to the replay. Right. And if, depending on where you are, it's in the morning California time, basically. Yeah. I'm doing it for West Coast group.
I will say, you know, to anybody, if you are interested in astrology, do this workshop, because Lynn is great, and it will give you an idea of, you know, the roadmap if you need a bit more of an idea of a roadmap. All right, Lynn, well, I'm going to leave it there.
We didn't talk about Gemini Sag.
Okay, let's talk a little bit. Okay, we're going to finish by referring to what we've just come out of. We've got about 4 minutes or 3 minutes left. Let's talk about what we've just finished with, Lynn.
Well, you know, the nodes were in Gemini and Sagittarius, and South Node in Sagittarius is everybody's right. And everybody else is wrong. Gemini splits the world in two, and Sagittarius is convinced it's got the truth. But the South Node indicates an almost negative pattern that will keep you on a path of negative evolution if you go too far in that. And one of the things we were really talking about in the workshop yesterday was how, and I'll talk about this again on February 7th or 8th if you're in Australia, is that we've had to be able to hold, what we were really asked to do is hold more than one point of view. And most of us didn't manage to do that, of course. So this, you know, the nodes aren't just an easy ride. They really require extra effort from us. But, you know, that's longer than we have to talk about today.
And that's not least because now what's going to happen is we've had all the Gemini Sag eclipses, and now we're going to have all the Taurus Scorpio eclipses. It's not always exact, because when the nodes are near the end, sometimes you get an out of sign eclipse. But overall, like this year, all the eclipses are on the same axis. So wherever we've talked about in your chart, wherever Lynn has mentioned in your chart is basically the two hotspots, the hotspots in your chart now as we move through 2022 and the eclipses, because all those, that's the part of your life that's going to be triggered. And the eclipses are basically where, you know, I like to think of them as they're a portal, like the movie Sliding Doors. If you go through them, you find yourself in a whole new space, but you have to kind of live consciously, and you know, doing astrology helps.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I was just thinking of them as like some kind of black gemstone on a thread, right? Where you have the white pearl of the normal lunations. Maybe that's because I'm looking at your background. Yeah. And then there's that black one, and it's pretty spooky. Spooky time with the eclipses there. So
exactly.
A lot more to say about this, but
yes, well,
great to
go to Lynn's workshop.
Yeah, and you can also have a look at my website, which is www.astrologylynnbell.com.
Astrologylynnbell.com. Brilliant.
Right.
All right, well, we'll leave it there because otherwise we'll be out of time.
Okay, great.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Lynn.
Yasmin.